Hello. It's nice to see so many music documentary fans here, so many Rolling Stones fans. You are my people. This is so exciting. Thank you first to our sponsor, Take Note Stationery Boutique, located right down the street here in Westdale Village. Give them a hand because that's why we're here. Thank you. Great options for gift shopping, hint, hint. So who is seeing this for the first time? Wow, a lot of people. That's exciting. More than I thought. So was anyone at a show on the 1969 U.S. Rolling Stones tour? You're all too young, yeah. How about anyone saw a show with the Rolling Stones this year? Yeah, I thought I saw some recent merch. Well, that's exciting. How many people here have seen the Rolling Stones? Yeah, a lot. That's great. So this is the second one we've done of these series. I'm Alicia Mean. This is something we're presenting here once a month, hopefully to continue it if we keep getting the support. It's been great so far. Last month we did Festival Express. And that film was in 1970. And I started talking a little bit about what was sort of happening culturally in that year. And this being filmed in 1969, similar sort of atmosphere in North America. But just to set the tone a bit, I thought I'll talk you through some of the things impacting North America in 1969. So we had Pierre Trudeau as our prime minister. Richard Nixon was president. The best picture Oscar winner that year was Oliver. But that year, a couple of really interesting films came out, including Easy Rider and Midnight Cowboy. Midnight Cowboy actually became the winner for the 1970. We had the moon landing, of course, very, very culturally significant. The Beatles played their last public performance on Apple Rooftop in London. John and Yoko got married and did their bed-in protests that year. We had the Woodstock Festival. We had the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup that year. A lot of fans in the audience, I hear, hockey fans. And a lot of not so great stuff was happening in 1969. We had the Vietnam War, the Cold War, Nigerian Civil War. There was a massive Union oil spill on the coast of Southern California that inspired the first Earth Day the following year in 1970. The Stonewall riots in New York City marked the start of the gay rights movement in the U.S. And in San Francisco, where the Altamont concert took place, there was an active serial killer terrorizing people, the Zodiac Killer at the time. The Manson murders were that year as well. So a lot of crazy stuff going on. There was artists that were dominating the charts that year, Billboard Hot 100. The number one single of that year, anyone have a guess? 1969? No one's going to get it. It's the Archies' Sugar Sugar. Yeah. I think maybe it's like just something to really take everyone's mind off all the horrible stuff happening. The Rolling Stones' Honky Tonk Woman was number 4 on that charts that year. It was a big comeback year for Elvis. There was multiple artists with multiple singles on the charts include Creedence Clearwater Revival, Blood, Sweat and Tears, The Fifth Dimension, The Temptations, Sly and the Family Stone, Marvin Gaye, The Beatles, Tom Jones. So that's kind of what was happening in the popular music side of things. But what was happening with the Stones? So that was the year that guitarist and founder Brian Jones died from a suspicious drowning in his home swimming pool on July 3rd. He was replaced by Mick Taylor. On November 7th, the U.S. tour starts in Colorado, and opening acts include Terry Reid, Ike and Tina Turner, B.B. King, and Chuck Berry. The first U.S. tour since 1966. And on December 5th, the album Let It Bleed is released, and Gimme Shelter is the opening track on that album. And on December 6th, the following day, we have the Altamont Free Concert at Altamont Speedway, which was their attempt at Woodstock West. So Gimme Shelter was co-directed by the Maysles brothers, Albert and David, and also Charlotte Zwerin, who was also the editor on the film. It was chronicling the last weeks of the Rolling Stones' 1969 tour. It's in the style of direct cinema. It's a style documentary where the filmmakers are recording events as they unfold naturally, not relying on narrative and voiceover and reconstructions. So they have to spend time with the band and build rapport to be able to get that kind of footage. So they filmed a lot more than obviously what's there, what we're going to see. But what we will see, some of the highlights include footage of Ike and Tina opening a show at Madison Square Gardens. We also get to see the Stones recording in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And we get to see a lot of Charlie Watts. And part of the reason I chose this film for the series was to honor the passing of Charlie Watts, who died on August 24th this year at the age of 80. So you get to see him on a donkey near Birmingham for the photo shoot for this album, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, which is the live album from this tour. If you don't have this album, highly recommend getting it. So I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk to set the tone for this, but afterwards they'll come up after the credits and we'll have a bit more of an in-depth talk about what we just saw, but just enjoy seeing these absolute legends behind me on this giant screen. Thank you. Well, that was quite a trip back in time. The Rolling Stones are pretty used to chaos at that time. I was just having a little conversation with somebody in the audience who saw the Rolling Stones at, what was it, in Toronto? Paul, I'm talking to you.
65.
In 65. What was the venue again?
Up at the Gardens.
Yeah. Maple Leaf Gardens, yeah. Unreal. So how did that compare to what you just saw there 4 years later?
Well, I mean, it was nuts. You know, I was only 16 and never saw anything like that. And pandemonium, you know, to see there line of girls down on the floor on maybe wooden chairs, standing up, and nobody could see, so a guy hit one and knocked on about 100 of them. Then in ran the cops, and they're grabbing the girls and taking them out, crying, screaming, you know.
Yeah, that's why when you see the Stones these days, it's just like the polar opposite of that. It couldn't be more secure. I saw them in the 2019 when they played up near Barrie, and you could only take into the show with you like a little, like tiny bag. It was, yeah, and that kind of explains, you know, where they're coming from with their security measures these days, I guess. So there's a lot of really cool scenes there behind the scenes, the deal making we saw with very famous lawyer Melvin Belly. His celebrity clients included Jack Ruby, who he defended for the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald. We got to hear the KSAN radio recording of founding member Hells Angels Sonny Barger calling in, giving his commentary after the fact, after the event. So the festival, the Altamont Festival itself had attendance of around 300,000 people. It was, as you saw in the film, it was moved locations just 24 hours before it started. So you can imagine, you know, scrambling to try to get everything up and running by then. We didn't see the Grateful Dead perform. They chose not to because of the escalating violence. Other performers, we got to see the Flying Burrito Brothers. I wish there was more footage of that because I'm a big fan of them. But also performed at the festival was Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and Santana. So that didn't make it into the film either. So I'm sure a lot of you noticed there was a lot of pool cues there. I didn't see any pool tables. Not sure. Apparently they were leaded pool cues that the Hells Angels were using for their security. So you might be asking why the Hells Angels were even there. What we know about them now, you know, legendary motorcycle club. But actually the Hells Angels were often serving as what they call honor guards at festivals around, or shows around the Bay Area. And in fact, when the Stones played a free concert in Hyde Park just after the death of Brian Jones, they had the English Hells Angels doing the security and what they were calling honor guards. So they were just kind of following what they were used to doing at the time. But for Altamont, the Hells Angels were given $500 in beer, which equates to about $3,600 in today's money. That was their sort of honorarium for their service. So the Hells Angels also, they didn't want to be filmed. They weren't cooperating with the film crew. I'm sure you can imagine they don't want to have a lot of their activities on tape for photographic evidence. But the camera operators had special cameras that they could use they didn't have to look through the viewfinder or hold on to them. So they were able to kind of fool the Hells Angels into not realizing they were filming. So that was how we got some of that kind of footage that you saw clandestine. And then there was actually a pretty famous person acting as camera operator at Altamont. None of his footage appears, but one of them was George Lucas. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I'm sure everyone knows George Lucas, Star Wars fame. Of course, one of the most shocking moments of the film is when we see 18-year-old Meredith Hunter killed by Hells Angel Alan Passaro. He had at least 6 stab wounds. But it also mentioned in the film that there were 4 births and 4 deaths. So there were 2 killed in a hit and run, 1 person drowned, and about 850 other injuries after that. So the film was financed in part by the Stones. So everything you're kind of seeing there, obviously they would have vetted and approved of at the time. It opened at the 1971 Cannes Film Festival. But it got a lot of bad reviews when it first came out. It was deemed kind of exploitative. The New York Times called it an opportunistic snuff film. So, people had the comment that it made the Stones look really, really good at the time, like they were trying to save their reputation or, by what had transpired by putting out a film like that. I don't think it makes them look like heroes necessarily, 40 plus years later. But it was the editor, Charlotte Zwerin, who had the idea of shooting the Stones watching the footage. So that was kind of a really interesting addition to the film, seeing their actual reactions to what had transpired. And she was given a co-director credit as a result of that. The film was financed by a New York real estate tycoon named Leonard Holzer. His wife, baby Jane Holzer, was a Warhol star and a friend of Mick Jagger's. And another thing I really like about it is just the amount of footage of Charlie Watts in the film. Watching that again this year after his death, it just was really kind of interesting. It's like he almost had as much screen time as Mick Jagger, which is just great to see. But he actually got really involved in the Stones promotion and like planning the stage sets. So he was kind of more involved in the business side than maybe people know. So I want to ask more comments from the audience. Is there anything that anyone wants to share about their experience watching that, something to do with seeing the Stones? I'll open up to the floor for questions or comments.
I can say that I was really pleased to join you and the Stones in the screen very first time ever seeing the Rolling Stones. I was so excited. I wanted to go to this show. I knew they were coming into town. I knew the tickets were like $200, and it was a lot of money, and I wasn't sure who I was going to go with. Just by a whim of all different kinds of events happening, you happen to have an extra ticket. She took me to the Stones. It was my first experience in like that huge venue outdoors. It was like one of the best times of my life. So thanks.
Oh, thank you, Janice. And Janice is also responsible for purchasing this lovely Rolling Stones face mask for me, which I'm so glad that I had an official pandemic event I could wear it to. And so, yeah.
Seeing the amount of people that were there, just thinking about like parking and all the situation, like it just seemed like such chaos that it almost gives me a panic attack watching. But like it was pretty good control. Like we were in and out of there in like 20 minutes when we went.
Yeah, I mean, like times have indeed changed, luckily.
I started to plan things out a little better for sure, but it's just like, it's crazy, and it's crazy how much can get out of control so quickly.
How many people were at that Barry show, you know?
Yeah, can we remember? Was anyone else at that Barry show here? Yeah, few, yeah. I don't think anyone died there, luckily, you know, or was born. That was the other thing. I couldn't imagine. Can you imagine anyone that's given birth in this room? Can you imagine giving birth in that setting? Oh,
I used to actually see who those people were, like now, like where are they now?
Yeah.
We're born at the Stones concert. Yeah, are they into music? Are they like, you know?
Well, you know, they had a show that they did of couples that were at the Woodstock Festival, where they are today.
Oh, wow.
And so they did a show about that. I was really interested. But I was going to say, you know, watching the Stones review that tape was kind of shocking because they didn't seem to register the shock that we all felt watching that. Like, it was just very, you know, he walked off at the end like,
Yeah, they were horrified. Like, I don't get it, really. You know?
They may have already seen it a number of times. You don't know how many
yeah,
times
maybe,
you've seen it.
yeah.
that's what I mean. The critical response to the film when it came out, saying that they were portraying themselves in this really great light. Like, I don't think that us seeing that now, we get that impression of them. It just seems that they were kind of, you know, a bit bewildered is, you know, maybe the best description of their reaction. But yeah, that's why I like to kind of give a little bit of context of the times when we're watching this, just to see like what's kind of going on in their world. Like, they had a pretty chaotic year, 1969. You know, they would have been, most of it probably would have been a blur to them. Doesn't register the same to people from the normal world. Yeah.
It was good to see Tina Turner.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I wish there was more footage of Ike and Tina Turner in the film too.
I don't know if you're aware that they played in Hamilton.
Really?
Many times. We used to go to this club down on Barton Street called the Chandelier Club, and it had Club Boogaloo in there.
Every time
They played in there.
Ah, that's amazing. I did not know that. That's incredible. Yeah, right on. Well, thank you. You have been a fantastic audience for this. Thanks so much for supporting it. We have next month, December 22nd, showing a film called Heart-Worn Highways, which I absolutely love too. We're going to get into later in the 70s, the sort of singer-songwriter movement that came out sort of as a, you know, pushback to the Nashville kind of songwriting world. We're going to be spending a lot of time in Texas with legends like Townes Van Zandt and Guy and Susanna Clark, David Allan Coe, Steve Earle. Just a really, again, it really captures an interesting moment in American music as well. So I hope you can join us for that. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We'll see you next time.